Welcome to Dig on America, where we speak truth to power. Every week, we give you the dig on how American history, policies, and media created the social and political issues we face today. DOA is independent media supported by listeners.
Dig on, Brother Dutch.
My 8th grade social studies teacher,
Mr. Humble.
taught me things that turns out after doing my own research wasn't exactly the whole story. And this week, we will dive into the topic of social identity theory and how it relates to in and out group bias. So we've done shows kind of on this along these lines before, but this time is a little bit more of a deep dive. If my co-hosts would like me to pause, they will yell out pause and comment, offer their commentary on whatever I have just said. So first of all, what is a group? Social identity theory defines a group as a collection of people who categorize themselves as belonging to the same social category and internalize that category's identity-defining attributes to define and or evaluate themselves. The theory was proposed by social psychologists Henri Tajfel and John Turner in the 70s and 80s. Social identity refers to the way that people's self-concepts are based on their membership in social groups, like this show. Examples can include sports teams, religions, nationalities, occupations, sexual orientation, ethnic groups, gender, etc. As discussed, or fraternities, Haas. Yes? Yes, that's what I thought. As discussed
Throwing
earlier,
up the alpha sign for all of you listening at home.
like we knew he would. Social identity theory addresses the way that social identities affect people's attitudes and behaviors regarding their in-group and an out-group. Social identities are most influential when individuals consider membership in a particular group to be central, central to their self-concept, and they feel strong emotional ties to that group. Affiliation with a group confers self-esteem, which helps to sustain that social identity. Tajfel breaks down the social identity theory into three parts: categorization, identification, and comparison. In the comparison stage, we compare our outgroup and ourselves to the other group or those in it, which can be problematic, but it's not always bad. It can also help define positive movements. For example, the Black is Beautiful movement, described as a Black embrace of African culture, hairstyles, music, and traditions, was provided by Tajfel as an example of the cognitive creativity of a lower status group to show stable in-group relations. While social identity theory is newer, the ideas are not. In 1906, another psychologist, William Sumner, said this in his book, Folkways, quote, "Loyalty to the group, sacrifice for it, hatred and contempt for outsiders, brotherhood within, warlikeness without. They all grow together, common products of the same situation. Men of other groups are outsiders with whom our ancestors waged war. Each group nourishes its own pride and vanity, boasts itself superior, exalts its own divinities, and looks at contempt on outsiders. Each group thinks its own folkways are the only right ones, and if it observes that the other groups have other folkways, these excite their scorn." Sounds very sinister. And frankly, it is. So what is an in-group and an out-group? Well, let's say you see someone wearing a t-shirt with your favorite sports team on. Psychologists say that in-group bias makes it more likely that this will evoke good feelings and promote immediate trust. Basically, we tend to favor others who exist in similar groups as ourselves. We overwhelmingly favor those similar to us. We are more likely to act if the results of the action will favor others in our group. And we are more likely to extend what is called generalized reciprocity, which kind of talked about this earlier in the show, which basically says I'm more likely to buy a white person dinner because I figure they're more likely to buy it for me next time. Come to think of it, I know a few Caucasians who owe me Chipotle.
Oh boy.
Anyway.
Oh boy.
All right, I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but not much. It's usually reserved for our tightest connections, this generalized reciprocity, maybe like family or close friends. One study showed that boys as young as 3 years old have been shown to display shades of group bias, although it's important to note that group bias is not a fixed mindset. Now, I'm going to talk about outgroup bias, the dirty, scary other.
Bum, bum, bum.
We all possess a cognitive bias. We can have this bias towards opposite sex, another religion, another race, a region of birth, or somebody who went to a rival school or is in a rival fraternity to Big Haas. Outgroup bias.
No such thing. Same goal, different colors.
Outgroup bias is literally primitive. It's a likely carryover, they say, from primitive times where resources were being fought over by other groups, such as you're fighting over a herd of buffalo, a water source, or a cave. And another group, if another group took that, you might die. But that really only comes into play for basic needs. One damaging form of outgroup bias is called xenophobia, which we've all heard of. Xenophobia is a fear of immigrants, where people are afraid that an invading group may take resources or jobs in most cases, and thus will paint.
They're going to replace us.
They will replace, and they'll grab their tiki torches
and their khakis.
Yes, and so they're saying what social psychologists are saying here is it's about resources, though these days jobs are usually the resource, and because of they're afraid of that, or at least they're using that as their excuse. Yes,
tons.
But here's the thing, though, is that people talk about immigrants taking jobs, but a lot of the jobs that immigrants have, the indigenous, or I'm sorry, the occupiers of this land aren't working. We tried that. They tried to get rid of all of the immigrants to do, and then have people from the country, born in the country, do the jobs that the immigrants largely took. And let's just say crops withered on the vine. And the average length of stay for quote unquote people born here, real Americans on the job, was a day and a half. So I think that, when we talk about people use jobs as, once again, cover for their just bias and fear.
Yeah, it's not like the people who are complaining about the Hispanic people crossing the border are saying, man, they took my job at the Halos factory. I really want to go out there and pick up oranges all day. I don't see any of them applying for that job.
In the blistering heat.
105, no shade.
For $6 an hour.
Right. And get 10 to 12 hours in.
Yeah, and under the table. So I'll repeat that last sentence. So again, one damaging form of outgroup bias is xenophobia, fear of immigrants, where people are afraid that an invading group might take resources, and will paint those groups, therefore, in a bad light, like I do with Wayne. Jane Elliott, many of you may know this story, was Jane
Elliott.
Jane Elliott was a third grade teacher, CRT, in the 1960s. She split her class into two groups, the blue eyes
and the brown eyes.
These two over here.
Hey, y'all want to fight? You blue eyes. Hey, blue eyes. Y'all want smoke? What's up?
We're still number one.
I'm about to say, run it.
Let's do it. So what Jane used to do is she would alternate praising one group, like on one day, and then alternate praising the other group on another day. And what she would do with the other group is she would point out their mistakes and criticize pretty much everything that they did. And then she noted these results. She did so to teach her students about the effects of racism, and it went viral, so to speak, at least in psychology and social circles. And there was no internet then, but Of course, Fox News today, they would have loved that story. Hannity would have covered it. It would have been CRT Unleashed. But of course now
Making our children feel bad, but fuck your feelings.
It is. Yeah. And you know what's funny? This is valuable psychological research today and valuable social research today because it took place. In fact, it's one of the most famous studies on in-group and out-group bias that has ever taken place. Wouldn't have had it if it weren't for her, breaking those barriers.
It's one of the few sociology tests that we can perform ethically.
Yeah.
Because it was crafted in such a way where the people were more or less inconvenienced rather than actually oppressed and downtrodden upon,
Yeah.
So
yep.
If you guys give it a, I'll grab the link for you guys. You guys
do that
on YouTube.
It's worth it to look at the whole study.
And when she repeated it with the college students, that was very eye-opening.
So let me see if you're going to talk about what so the what was striking in Elliott's study was how fast her third grade students would turn on whichever was the out group on the other on that given day.
Mm-hmm.
This was duplicated a few years later with the Stanford prison experiment. Now, the Stanford prison experiment, I was going to say, I didn't think Elliott had anything to do with that.
Right.
So the Stanford prison experiment, I'm not going to dive into this, but you got to go watch a video on it or something. It went really bad.
Can I do a 30-second breakdown on what it is?
Go ahead.
All right. So what that essentially, I mean, it's gone by a couple of different permutations. You've seen this thing. So pretty much there's a group of people that are the inmates or the subjugates, and then there's a group that is the overseeing class.
Yeah, the guards.
Yeah, the guards. And you'll have to just read it or watch a video about it yourself, but too long didn't read. As soon as people were giving power over people without any checks or balances, and it was completely left up to them, the results revealed a lot of nasty shit. And you'll have to go and check it out for yourself. I'm pulling up, I think, trying to remember which one I watched. I'm looking up the blue eyes, brown eyes thing. So I thought it was like a half an hour long video. This guy is not on her channel, but it is a video of it. So I can post that one for you guys.
Yeah, it's definitely that the Stanford experiment and Jane Elliott's are both worth taking a few minutes and learning about and reading deeply into them because they're truly fascinating. This is a 30,000 foot. But the Stanford prison experiment obviously went really bad, led to violence, led to trauma. The whole study lasted 6 days. It was supposed to last months. In short, these studies and others show over and over that outgroups are viewed as, quote, all the same and displaying similar, quote, unfavorable traits, according to Practical Psychology, which is a website. This homogeny bias makes it easier, they claim, to remember those in an in-group than it is to remember those in an out-group. This, of course, is known as stereotyping, and Mikey and I covered this in a video probably about a year ago. Because that's where they get like all the black people look alike. It actually comes from a real psychological concept. So then we have one of my favorite words, which is schadenfreude. So schadenfreude or schadenfreude is a combination of the German sounds Schaden, meaning damage or harm, and Freud, or as we spell it, F-R-E-U-D-E, Freud, meaning joy. So it's often mispronounced in English. So it makes sense that Schadenfreude, which is the actual German pronunciation, means joy over some harm or misfortune suffered by another. The English word for this is substantially less fun, which is epicaricacy. E-P-I-C-A-R-I-C-A-C-Y. I actually never heard that word until yesterday, and I Googled Schadenfreude for synonyms, and that came up, and I was like, oh, look, there is an English word for it. So either way, This is literally the reason schadenfreude or schadenfreude that Jerry Springer was even a thing to begin with, because we loved watching Jerry bring people on who we thought we were better than. So schadenfreude is a reaction of pleasure when someone from an outgroup encounters a peril. We all feel it to some degree, especially if we feel like that other group has been winning or is arrogant or something else. A Cubs fan can feel it when a Cardinals player gets injured. A Pacers fan might feel it when the Bulls lose on a last-second buzzer beater. Any human being outside of Boston felt it when the Patriots lost Tom Brady. We saw this when Trump got COVID, when Biden got COVID twice in a week, when RBG died, when Rush Limbaugh died. We always saw the schadenfreude from the other side. When Roe was overturned, the right wing engaged in schadenfreude to, or schadenfreude, again, it's easier for me to say schadenfreude, to epic levels. Epic levels after Roe was overturned. It was really matched only by that of centrist Democrats when Bernie concedes a presidential primary. Researchers have found that there are three driving forces behind schadenfreude. One, I'm just trying to get these in order here.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, schadenfreude.
There you go.
Well, that's the German pronunciation. English, it's like
There's
more like
there's only
schadenfreude.
one
It's
way to there's only one way
It's
to
a
say things,
bastardization.
Dutch. It's either
that is actually not completely accurate,
bro,
because sometimes bastardizations of words become normal, right?
Bro, it's always been a tortilla. Just because a lot of people said tortilla, don't make it tortilla. It's still tortilla.
Nobody says tortilla.
Bruh.
Oh yeah.
I know girls that say prickle.
What's the
people say a pickle? People say all kinds of shit wrong. Don't bow into their bullshit.
I'm just gonna call you Mo instead of Mo.
Schadenfreude is a pretty common bastardization of schadenfreude. But anyway,
that doesn't mean it's right, though.
I will use schadenfreude to make Mikey happy.
There you go.
Even though it takes me 2 extra seconds to say the word because I have to think of it. So anyway, there are researchers have found that I don't have to respect a German word, Big Haas. As a German, I get to do that. All right.
Wow.
How you like it? How you like that?
He the Candace Owens of Berlin.
Right.
Wow.
So
fuck your language. Fuck your language. This is America, bitch. Now, say what the fuck I want. Pop me a chorus.
I told you a couple weeks ago we don't have to assimilate. All right. So researchers have found that there are 3 driving forces behind this phenomenon of schadenfreude. One's perception of, number 1, aggression, which represents an improvement or validation of a person's in-group, which was rampant during the celebrity deaths during COVID, depending on one's vaccination status. And you know what I mean there? Like such and such died of COVID, wasn't vaccinated. People are like, oh, well, that's what he gets for not being vaccinated. Or on the other side, he was vaccinated and died of COVID. See, you assholes shouldn't have taken the vaccine. It was that was all schadenfreude. Number 2, rivalry. Related to interpersonal, this piece of it is related to interpersonal competition or a desire to stand out from and to outperform one's peers, like when I prove Mikey wrong. It's so glorious.
Run the tape back.
And number 3, justice. This piece of it comes from seeing the behavior that is seeing that behavior seen as immoral or bad becomes punished. It's the pleasure associated with seeing a perceived bad person being harmed, or as Haas often says, getting their comeuppance. Finally, because we as humans continue to have such outgroup biases, we, on purpose or not, or both, are bound to oppress other groups. So it only becomes logical that since we are all in multiple groups, even those of you who say, well, I'm just in one group, America, you're still in that group of people who think that. Okay. So that people who belong to more than one group in this country are often outgroups. That social science would identify and did as something called intersectionality. Intersectionality is the acknowledgement that everyone has their own unique experiences of discrimination and oppression. And we must consider everything and anything that can marginalize people, whether it's gender, race, class, religion, sexual orientation, physical ability, weight, etc. These things are called identity markers. Intersectionality recognizes that these identity markers do not exist independently of each other and that each can compound the other. These biases, by the way, even find their way into AI algorithms. And actually, algorithmic biases can even be exaggerated by AI systems. So yes, even you,
Well, like when Tesla
Alexa,
was running over black people.
were Tesla's running over black?
Oh
what,
yeah,
Are you talking about the robot cars?
I'm talking about when they used their driverless function. It didn't recognize black people as actually in the road. They thought it was a shadow.
That wasn't Tesla, that was Uber, right?
Might have been Uber, one of the two.
Yeah. Okay.
Uber
But-
makes cars.
They had the driverless cars.
They have
remember?
the driverless cars, yeah. Those were owned by Uber.
Running
they still
black
have 'em.
folks down.
But so yeah,
That
Alexa,
just shows who was
Uber.
in that R&D group.
Well, but obviously they need some bias training, but that's a funny point. So like you could see that being the case. Where so I bought Melissa for her birthday a couple weeks ago. I bought her a Cordy, which is basically like an iRobot, the little vacuum that goes around.
Mhm.
And when it sees certain color, like for example, our floorboards are bright white. I know they are bright white because I painted them myself.
Mhm.
But like the kitchen table is a dark brown. When the robot is going towards the baseboard, it stops about an inch before it and turns. But it bumps into the kitchen table. So now that's done on purpose,
Racist.
right? Actually, I wish it didn't do that because it misses some of the crumbs along the baseboard.
Have y'all seen on Twitter the racist turtle?
No.
I'll get it.
Yeah, please get that. But like you could see that like if they use 10 white people as test subjects and it's learning that skin color as part of like that, the AI built it's not like the person said only stop for white people, but the AI only saw white people as the test subjects. So therefore, when it saw someone who wasn't white, it didn't recognize them as human. Is that about right?
Yeah. Technology imitates life sometimes, huh?
So, look, we all want to make sense of the world, and our brains do this naturally by forming concepts. Now, concepts are mental groupings of things that are similar. We organize concepts by forming prototypes or examples of things. The common example of this is if I say, think of a bird, you probably don't think of a penguin because they're not prototypical birds. Of course, we know prototypical birds are just robots, but let's move on before Anna, sitting at home, goes insane.
You guys ready for the turtle?
The dig's almost over. We'll get to it in a second.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Got it locked and loaded.
Prototypes aid our thinking, but they can also hamper it, and that leads to bias. So the more we understand our implicit biases, the more we can begin to overcome them, and only then can we create a more equitable and fair society. Our perception is formed from our experiences, always. So in theory, if we broaden our experience and study things, expose ourselves to other groups, no matter how uncomfortable those people or ideas may seem, we will end up better at accepting others into our group, so long as, of course, that group is a good idea. Good ideas should be popular, true, and promoted, true. But here's the good news. Things are changing. In the 1930s, only a quarter of Americans would vote for a woman, but today that's 90%, despite women being an outgroup for half the country. But unfortunately, it's morphed into more social, cultural, and political divides, such as the idea that one must view the American ideal in a certain way, otherwise they're not part of the group. So in closing, in-group and out-group biases and social identity theory, these concepts can 100% drive discrimination. But what we will discuss here is when is inter-out-group bias justified, if ever? In other words, is it always bad, or are there times when inter-out-group bias can be beneficial. So before we do that, though, Mikey has a treat for us. So let's watch the video on the racist turtle.
Now, I'm not saying this turtle is 100% racist. I'll let y'all decide for yourselves.
You got to narrate it for the audio people, though, right?
Okay. So this looks to be some sort of boxed tortoise animal. I don't know if it's a red-eared slider or a box. I don't know what kind of turtle this is. But you'll see. Here, I'll describe as it goes. So he sets the turtle in a group of white shoes, and he beats up the black shoe. Okay, so we put the black shoe just further away. Nope, turtle is beating up. Oh, what's that? He's got a white sock and a black sock. He goes after the black sock. What's that? The bottom of the white shoe is black. He goes after the bottom of the shoe. He flips it over. Turtle's fine.
This was no damn accident. This was no accident.
And that's Dr. Umar. Jack.
This was no accident.
They put Umar in there. Oh my God, that's so funny.
I've never seen that before. That's fantastic.
Yo,
Now, what we need to do is we need to find an anthropologist to come on the show and tell us why that is. Is it because most of the turtles' natural predators are darker hued?
Just long history of racism.
Is it also because when turtles lay eggs, the eggs are white?
What, they think that's a big black egg?
No, I'm saying the eggs are white, so it doesn't want to harm the egg.
I'm just saying, I think you really sound like a racist turtle apologist right now.
You calling me an RTA? Oh my God, I've been labeled.
So go ahead and comment. Do me. I have a video I'm going to pull up. I want to show. Actually, we should watch this whole video one day because it's fantastic. You guys might have seen it. But
50 minutes.
Go ahead and comment on what you're going to comment about this. I'm going to find this other video
about in-group and out-group bias.
No, about milkshakes.
Black milkshakes or white milkshakes?
Turtle milkshakes.
So the question that I asked at the end, just to kind of,
yeah, let's get back to that.
Is there any instances where out-group bias or in-group bias can be a positive? Or is it something that you think we should try to extinct all the way?
For me as a black person, if I'm in an predominantly out-group area for me, meaning everywhere, a predominantly white area, and there's 8 white guys running at me, or walking towards me, looking kind of menacing, my out-group bias might help me, save myself, as it has a couple of times. Hey, I'm gonna go get back in the car. I'm not gonna see Patricia today. I mean, I think that there are always situations that can be found where a bias actually ended up being a positive, but I think that those few instances don't disprove the aggregate where it's largely detrimental to the rounding out of a person's perceptional space. I don't know if perceptional is a word, but I just used it.
I think it is. I think because everybody does bring their own biases to the table, I find that a lot of people, no matter if how forward thinking that they are, they fall victim to this. And what ends up happening, which is my greatest frustration, is they spend 90% of their effort infighting or splitting hairs about in-grouping things as opposed to doing something beneficial for the group.
No.
I don't know whether it's the atheist community, the black community, the gamer community, the streaming community. Everyone wants to argue and piss and moan and split hairs, and you're not really this and I'm the most that, and you can't be this if you're that. And okay, so we already had one in-group that was all focused on one issue, but no, we have to make multiple other in-groups inside the in-group just so that I can be the in-group, and you're on the outside of the in-group. You're not all the way on the in-group, you're on the medium in-group. And I have no time for it. It is my greatest disdain, and I have a song coming out about it soon on my new album.
Do you
wrote
think
a song about it like the here you go?
Do you think? So here's a question I want to ask you guys. So we have some political in and out groups going on right now, right? So like, but isn't there a time and place that makes a lot of sense for like pushing some particular ideas to the to the margins? You know, like when it comes to, I don't want to let this person expose particular ideas to like my kids or whatever, right? So I'm going to impede your access to my kids, right? So like, do I want my mother-in-law talking about anti-vax to my kids? She's clearly in an out group when it comes for me, when it
But
comes
it's
to
the
like
out group. Is it her?
anti-vaxxers.
Is it her existence in an out group? Oh, you're talking as the out group being the anti-vaxxer group.
Well, I'm just making an example. So like, also like, so with Twitter, we generally follow people who have like-minded ideas, right? So are you going to follow a bunch of people who are exposing ideas you don't agree with just to be exposed to them?
That's what you say to do. And
I say that you should, no, I say you should expose yourself to those ideas. I
Why?
don't say that you should only expose yourself to those ideas.
I don't think that there's any utility in exposing yourself
And
to hate speech and garbage and lies and things that literally just fuck
I mean,
up
things
your
that we know,
your
things
your
that we know are false. Why would you expose yourself to that?
well,
right. Like I'm
okay,
not going to go
yeah,
on. Like there's a bunch of transphobes on Twitter, right? That's the big thing to be on Twitter, is to be a fucking transphobe. I'm not
right.
going to fucking go through and sort through these fucking assholes. I'm going to go walk around, do what I normally do on Twitter, and make sure my trans friends know that I love them.
Right, but you're
That does way more for the trans community than fucking arguing with these people who they're not legitimate actors. Like they don't care about any of this. They're just doing it to troll you. They're
okay,
just doing
but
this to
that but
upset
that's
you.
what I'm talking about. So then you're saying in that instance that it's okay to have an out group, that you shun away from your particular conversations, right?
I'm just,
Yeah,
as far as the in groups and the out groups, everybody is not deserving of my free time. And that's the
Right.
thing. But that's the thing. Like in group or out group, people putting their time into fighting them, I won't do that.
Yeah, but that's
I,
not what I'm talking about. When you were asking about like, you know, I when the conversation that we were talking about had to do with like exposing ourselves to the ideas of the other side. I'm not going into a room where someone is saying that you know, black people are inferior. I'll go
right.
into a room though where people are saying that they think like Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, because, and the reason why I will do that is because there are going to be people in that room who fall upon that room and will say, oh, well, I heard that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, and those ideas need to be combated.
But
Right.
they're not there because they value the validity of the ideas. They are there for the in group. They already
Right, but
think
they might
that,
be in
and
the
they're going there, and they're
but they
going
might
there.
be in the in group
Okay,
because
this
of
is going to be a really
something
weird
else.
conversation if I can't say anything. They're going there to rub their confirmation bias button. That's why they're there. They're not there for information. They're like, huh, is it a terrorist organization? I don't know. Let me listen to what no, they know. They already have their mind made up. They're not there to learn. Because people don't go to Twitter spaces to learn things. People go to Twitter spaces to express things.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Do you follow people in the gaming community?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to necessarily agree with everything that everybody in the gaming community says?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So if someone is following someone in the gaming community for gaming, and then they come across a room that person, let's just use Twitter Spaces as an example, and they say, and it says Joe's late night room, and it's, you know, somebody you follow with gaming. So you enter that room, and it just so happens they're ranting on vaccines. Would you not counter that? Because the person who comes there, someone else might come in there looking for gaming advice and end up being indoctrinated into some other bullshit. I've seen this happen to people on Twitter where they go into these karaoke rooms that are advertised as karaoke rooms, but they're fucking right-wing propaganda rooms. They're there,
leave.
and they're there on purpose to lure you
leave.
in.
Now, you know what I do on Dutch on that is I won't go into a room, but on an individual level, I will educate. You know, like I just had this thing the other day. This guy I'm friends with on Facebook, and he posted some garbage, and I hit him with the links like, "This is garbage. This is why." And it wasn't necessarily for him. It's for, like you say, somebody else on his page that might fall victim to the idiocy
Right.
that he was
Facebook's
posting.
a way better example than a Twitter space, actually.
Yeah. But I won't go into Joe's right-wing habitat
Yeah.
Right.
but on an individual level, I will say, now that's not true. XYZ 1, 2, 3. Here's why. And I'm not just gonna say that's not true and leave it at that. You know, and what I find is a lot of people who want to combat me on this, they never have a study, they never have a statistic. It's just that's BS. And I'm like, well, here's number one, here's the what's the verification site, Truth or Fiction or something like that.
The fact check,
Snopes.
like Snopes or
Snopes. Here's the Snopes. This person never said this. You know, people would love for this person to have said this because they love to have a black person, saying these types of things against these types of issues. But this person never said this. You have to go find Candace or Diamond or Silk or one of those damn Hodge twins, and they probably did say that. But this person didn't say that, and they got all mad at me. But they couldn't refute what I said. So fuck them. But on an individual level, I'll do that. On a group level, I'm not going into a Facebook group and trying to engage in battle with all these people. Now, sometimes I'll go into a Facebook group just to see how racist they really are and do a little screenshotting. But
so back to the in group and the out grouping. Like the biggest tool of in groups is identity, and that's why there is no point jumping into a space and arguing with Republicans, because you're not arguing the policies, right? That's not what y'all's contention is. Their contention is, you're telling me I'm not an American, and that's important to me. That's part of my identity. And you're telling me that I'm bad at it and I'm doing bad at it. So you're saying I'm a bad person. And no matter what you say about policy, you are calling me a bad person. So I will not give you an inch when it comes to any kind of debate. And if that is the mindset that person has, a debate is not the kind of conversation that needs to take place. What needs to happen is you need to get them to admit that their patriotism and their political stances are not them. It is something that they agree with, but it is not them as a soul, as a structure, as a being. If you can disconnect that, sure, have a conversation. But that in group is going to make sure that their identity is so wrapped up into whatever cause it is. Mm-hmm. They're never going to you're never going to make headway. You're going to bash your head against that adamantium wall until your head is gone. And then I'm going to sit there with like one little bruise. I'm like, I've been trying to fucking tell you that for like 5 years, but now you want to listen.
So then explain why, that being the case. So explain, well, maybe it's not the greatest example, but there's when you have places, whether it be at a Twitter space or your Uncle Bob's Facebook page or whatever, where people are going to that particular place for something, and they get exposed to something they did not necessarily go there for. That causes bad ideas to become contagious, because what the right wing is extremely good at is packaging bad ideas and culture wars into packages that sound reasonable, like America first. Like, if you would have told me, would I support America first when I was 15, I would have said, of course I'll support America first, because I live in America and I'm an American. So yeah, that idea sounds totally reasonable to me, but you don't see what the bullet points within that are, right? And there are people who get sucked into these ideas because of the title, and then they end up buying into a bunch of other stuff. This is why anti-vax went rampant, was because of Facebook and because enough people didn't challenge it, at least in the right way.
I disagree. I disagree.
Then how did anti-vax get so how did anti-vax
people
become
are
so big?
People are stupid, Dutch. We cannot this is Dunning-Kruger 101. You're a smart person, so you think everybody
I don't know what that reference means. What is Dunning-Kruger?
So the Dunning-Kruger is I have to pull up the paper for you. But pretty much what the study showed was that they gave, I'll just butcher it right here real quick. So let's say there was 100 people given the same test. So everyone takes the test, and then after the test, they say, how do you think you did? And the people who did really well thought, I probably did, everyone, or no, they ask you where you thought you ranked in your answers. Like, how well do you think you did compared to everybody else? And all the smart people said, probably like, top third, like a B, just like not all the way at the top, but, just up there.
Right.
But the people at the bottom, all the people at the bottom all thought they were on the top. So what that shows us and demonstrates for us is smart people think everybody gets it already. Dumb people think they've already got it. And they don't. It's the dumb ones who think they know everything. People who know anything know that they know nothing. The more you learn that you don't know.
That's true. I think that's true, but I'm not sure that's
so the
I'm
dumb
not sure
people.
That's an argument to let dumb ideas fly free.
No, that is you're conflating two things are not true at the same time, Dutch. You're conflating social media.
Yes,
you're conflating social media and people's in-grouping tendencies. Because tribalism and in-grouping, like that's been with us since caveman days. But with social media as a rocket pack, yeah, these dumb people can get a hold of each other and blow up these Twitter spaces and blow up Facebook groups and do all. There's 10, 50,000 people in these groups, and they're all stupid. They're all dumb. They all don't know anything. But now they have a way to contact other people and confirm their and prove their confirmation bias. And that's the double-edged sword of technology, right? That's the double-edged sword of social media. But that doesn't mean that like there isn't a way really to reach them. They have to leave on their own.
But they have
kind of got to write them off.
Because
the only thing that you can do is prove to them that it doesn't work, and they have to figure it out on their own. A conversation won't work. They have to see it because that's how they perceive things.
But
if you try to have like a theoretical conversation with somebody who's not really mentally equipped for theoretical conversations, you won't get anywhere. But if they see that, oh, this person did bad, this person did good, that's a very tangible, easy to digest thing for them. Like if we just did the dig where it was just the words going across, it's the same content, but it doesn't appeal to people the same way. You know what I mean? Like not everybody wants to just sit there and read. They want to hear us talk and joke.
I think we probably agree on this, and we might be talking past each other a little bit because what I'm referring to is I'm going to draw a bright line here. Okay. So let's say that I saw me, or even let's say I'm Joe Schmo in the middle. I like to use that term, right? So Joe Schmo in the middle logs into Twitter. He follows 2,000 people, right?
Okay.
And he sees two Twitter spaces. And for those who don't know what Twitter spaces is, it's like Clubhouse. It's just like it's like a chat room, right? So you see and they have a title usually, like it'll say like Ravana made a great joke.
Oh God!
And this wasn't a joke; it was real. She was like, the first time I saw Twitter Spaces, Ravana said, she said there was two Twitter Spaces at the top of my page: Muslim prayer hour and my pussy is wet. Right? Like those are the topics of the room.
Wow.
So But so like, let's say that there was like, I saw 3 Twitter spaces there: Lakers talk, conspiracy room, and Biden screws up again, right? So like, or let's even use something further to the right. All black people are ends, right? So like, I am Joe Schmo in the middle, and I see those 3 rooms. I don't give a fuck about the Lakers. I'm not going to go in the room with all black people are ends. But conspiracy room, you know what? I believe like in the Kennedy conspiracy, and like I think those shows are interesting, like Hidden America and stuff like that. So let me go in there and see what they're talking about. Maybe there's something interesting to listen to about the CIA or whatever. And then in the conspiracy room, which by the way, this is the name of a real Twitter space, which espouses right-wing propaganda. And they use it because they know people are interested in like true crime and conspiracy, right? Those are the number like 1 and 2 podcasts out there are true crime and conspiracy. So people go in and listen to it, and then they hear Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, vaccines kill, all these other things. And when they hear it over and over and over from everybody, they didn't go into that space for the racism. They purposely avoided the racist room. But they got exposed to those ideas. So I would never go into the all black people are ends room, because anyone in that room is beyond hope.
But also people avoid that room because they don't want to be labeled that, but they might hold those ideas.
Well, except on Truth Social, they go right into that room.
Oh man,
or Parlor, right? But you see what I'm saying? Like I'll go into the more tacit,
palatable.
Yeah, the more palatable titled room, because I know what it is, but that doesn't mean that Joe Schmo in the middle realizes what it was. And I don't need any more people buying into bad ideas, because bad ideas should be unpopular. And when they fly rampant and unchecked, you have no choice but to take the blame of letting them fly rampant and unchecked.
Which is why I said that when those bad ideas are directly attached to identity, there is no debating that out of people. You have to detach it from their identity first, and that's something they have to do on their own. You cannot reach them. I'm sorry. And Wayne's over here fucking going off in the chat. I'm sorry, Wayne, you're wrong.
There are people out there.
If you believe there is nothing I could tell Wayne right now to tell him that and convince him that he is not British.
Yeah,
it's not going to work.
But look, and Haas, you just let me say this one quick thing. I used to think, because it sounded rational to me, I used to think that homosexuality was a choice. Right. Seemed logical to me. Like I didn't care if someone made that choice. Like I was like, I don't give a fuck if you want to.
And that opinion was probably based on the fact that people were like the climate warmed up, and it became safer for people to come out. So now we're seeing more and more people come out. I was like, oh, okay, so they're deciding to be gay. Okay, that makes sense. It's completely wrong, and it's a complete mischaracterization of the facts. But it was based on something you saw, not on something not on something that someone convinced you through a talking point. You know what I mean? Like, people are really basic at the end of the day. At the end of it all, they're real basic.
You also know that like the DSV-3 used to list homosexuality as a mental as a mental disorder, right? So like the smart people had that opinion for a while too, so-called smart people. But I used to think that not, and there was no hate involved there. It was just, okay, so they're making a choice to sleep with a man or a woman or whatever. That's fine. Who cares? Right. But then you talk to someone who said in that community, and they're like, you know what? I never really felt like I had a choice. It was just natural for me, and I was never attracted to women. And I'm like, obviously, assuming I'm talking to a gay man there, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, then you kind of move to, is it a choice sometimes? Is it a choice all the time? And like, I'm not saying that there's there's never one example of one person ever for whom it wasn't a choice, because you could probably dig up that one person, and I'm sure that person has been dug up, right, to try to break down the theory and everything. I'm not trying to go there. I'm not arguing from extremes here.
Right.
But the But in general, it's not something that's a choice. It's like I didn't choose to like pizza, you know.
Pizza Life chose me.
Yeah, pizza chose me, right?
Especially that school pizza on Fridays.
I used to like this. I used to like it.
Square pizza. I did too.
Pizza.
That's the best. It was the best.
I just had that argument today. I literally had that argument today.
That school pizza was the shit.
And did you like the Mexicorn?
Oh, we ain't had that.
We had that, man. You didn't
have the So the Mexicorn was it's kind of like what you get at Pollo Loco if you have Pollo Loco. It's corn with like the little red peppers in it.
You mean the elotes?
Maybe that's what
it's. He's talking about that corn that's got peppers in it too. They call it like the Mexican style.
It's in like
I didn't like that. I didn't like
it's
that.
in like a taco.
About now, no, but I didn't have that at school.
We didn't have that at school.
It's like a taco. It's like a taco flavored butter.
We didn't get fresh vegetables.
No, I loved fucking Mexicorn, dude. But the point is like,
what's juice?
Grape drink.
We had drink. It was purple.
So like I guess that just to kind of close on, I think I'm on the fence because I think that like if we're gonna have a conversation about how to get government to promote single payer healthcare, I don't need someone from the Outgroup coming in there and hijacking the conversation and turning it into a fight. We already all know that that's going to work, right? So there's a time and place for someone to debate us on that. But when we're implementing policy and trying to strategize it, that's not the time for that. So in that case, I'm in for discriminating against joining my group to the Outgroup. But there are other cases where I'm not against that because of two things. One, I'm open to conversation generally. I'm open to the idea that I might be wrong generally. But two, again, there is a lot of people that I have watched their de-evolution on Facebook from normal to shamasha. And, and I'm saying, and Haas knows what I'm talking about when I say shamasha or Corey, right? These are people who are Facebook friends with us. And like, they got roped into one idea, and that one idea, isn't it amazing how like when you buy into one right-wing idea that somehow the others come so easily?
That's the hook.
Here's my mic drop moment. Did the idea have anything to do with their identity or them as a person?
I think there's times when
I don't even know what this is about, but I can guarantee you it's something that they feel affects them as a person. And just like when tragedy strikes home, that's when everybody wants to get things legislated and get things changed, because now my in-group has been affected. Now I care.
Yeah,
the same thing.
The Dig literally kind of said that. I'm going to play this quick video. I think you guys will like this. Have you guys ever seen that episode of Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman about bigotry?
Oh, you're talking about Morgan Freeman.
Yes. So I'm going to play this. Mikey, let me know if you think the music is too much. Now, let me say this beforehand. This video is on YouTube like 30 different places, so it's easy to get this video. And this particular channel speeds it up. So like Morgan Freeman sounds like Mickey Mouse. But Mikey,
for the wormhole.
Mikey, stop the share if you think it'll get us a strike. I trust your judgment.
We probably won't get a strike. We'll probably get like a copyright warning. They can take the monetization on the things that's not monetized. That don't bother me.
I would love to sit and watch this whole video with you guys. Like we should do that just maybe one day. This video is fucking phenomenal.
Hey,
let's watch this.
I'll set a day aside, a couple of days aside a month, and we can watch stuff. But y'all got to make that Patreon do what it do.
Oh yeah, that's got to be a Patreon thing.
Yeah, my time is expensive.
All right, can you guys see this? All right.
You don't use YouTube in dark mode? What a monster.
Yeah, I'm a terrible person. All right, here we go.
She began with a mammal that has a simpler brain than ours.
Hello, guys. How you doing?
It's a white lab rat.
Buddy.
The rat, a creature who typically only aids members of its own strain.
They killed Morgan's voice.
This experiment involves temporarily trapping a rat in a plastic tube. The tube has just one way out, through a door that can only be opened by another rat. When another rat from the same strain is added to the chamber, It's not long before he works out how to free his imprisoned fellow tribesmen.
These are all albino rats of the Sprague Dolly stock. And so while they're not identical and they've never met each other,
Clones.
they might look like the fifth cousin twice removed.
If the rat looks familiar, the other rat helps. But then Peggy repeats the experiment.
Wow,
with rats
not the
of
black
unrelated
rat.
strains.
Let me get Dr.
Now
Umar.
it's a black-caped rat in the tube, and an albino rat has the option to free him.
They've never met a black Cape rat before. They don't open for them. They have no affiliative bond, and therefore they do not act pro-socially towards these very strange looking type of rats.
But can the rat ever change his ways? To find out, Peggy exposes a white rat to a black-caped rat.
We took albino rats, we housed them with black Cape rats for 2 weeks. Then we rehoused them with an albino rat. So they've known one black caped rat.
Does this experience make the albino empathetic to all black-caped rats? To find out, she places him in the arena with a trapped black-caped rat that he's never met before. The albino rat breaks through the color line.
What that suggested was that just having a bond to one black Cape rat would allow an albino rat to generalize all the black Cape rats.
The world is saved.
Mm-hmm.
No, but that's kind of like that turtle thing a little bit, right?
We gotta trap rats with each other. We gotta trap humans with each other and make them. But
Okay.
that doesn't help because we got schools that do that. But
No, you're right. No, Dutch is right. Start imprisoning the whites.
they gotta
Lock 'em up.
get in there. But here's the thing: you imprison, and then they go right to the Aryan Nation, and then the blacks go to the Black Guerrilla family,
Yeah.
and then the Latinos go to their group, and they
Yeah, but you got to put him in one of them Jeffrey Epstein prisons where where Donald Trump would end up going, where it's like a country club. They golf all day.
maybe.
Put him in that prison, or do the Stanford prison experiment.